when George and we got connected, it was like wildfire, you know.
Hey, everybody, this is TJR.
And this is Robert Kinsler.
And today we're going to talk about a film that sheds light on a certain period of Beatles history that most fans are aware of and may think that they know everything there is to know about it. But this film is entitled The Beatles and India. And it is about the period of time, primarily about the period of time that they spent with the Maharishi. This film, I was not aware of it until you told me about this a few days ago. And you described this film to me as revelatory. Now that I've seen it, I have to agree. But before we discuss it too much, Robert, please just tell us a little bit about this, tell everybody about this, because you've written already about this film on your blog page. So please tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so thank you, TJ. Let me go ahead and maybe I'll just read a little bit from my blog post just
Sure.
so people can get an idea on the background. So The Beatles in India has just been released here in the United States via BritBox. Now, BritBox is the streaming service that's a joint venture between BBC Studios and ITV. And this documentary features a wealth of new and archival interviews and expert commentary, along with historic and previously unseen photographs and film footage that really shed a light on the Beatles' famous trip taken to India in early 1968, where they stayed at this ashram, and hopefully I'll apologize if I butchered that, which is in northern India and at the foothills of the Himalayas. And although it focuses on that, it really talks about everything before and after, kind of related to the Beatles' special relationship with Indian music and Indian culture. And I think that all those elements kind of come together really powerfully in this documentary.
I agree. This film opens, it starts out with kind of showing us that the Beatles' their first exposure to Indian music was the film Help, which is a comedy, which I know one of the interviewees on the film he wasn't upset, but he said, this film kind of portrays us as kind of bloodthirsty savages. It is offensive, but it was just, that was movie making at the time. But this was their first exposure. And of course, George Harrison, of course, being the one who really started to connect with Indian music and Indian culture. And then to a certain degree beneath that, John Lennon, and then Paul and Ringo after that. But it describes that there was a previous visit to India prior to the whole Maharishi meeting, that the big media event that was at the time, which also had music artists like Donovan and Mike Love of the Beach Boys attending as well, and Mick Jagger was there.
Right.
But what's interesting about this is that there is so much interview footage. There's archival footage from the Beatles and people who were there at the time. There's archival interview footage, but there's also a lot of newer interview footage with individuals who were there at the time, or who were the sons and daughters of people who were there at the time, who can relay what their parents told them about it.
Right.
And this film really sheds a lot of light onto a period of time that I think a lot of fans think they know everything there is to know about it, but going to see it in a whole new light once they watch this film.
Oh yes, yeah, and like you're talking about, and they bring all these elements together, whether it's the audio interviews or the film footage or the new interviews, or even they've gone back with, I guess, camera crews and taken film footage and interviews at the location where these events played out, and you see how things look today, and then it's just very fascinating, and it's like I said, over the course of this hour and a half or so, you learn so much. And it really fills in a lot of blanks. And we haven't even mentioned yet, and we perhaps should. This visit was that we talked about was right before they recorded the White Album, and the White Album would be very different, or would probably not be the album we know today without this trip by all four of the Beatles to northern India. It would have been very different.
Yes. So a lot of songs, and this has been historically already documented, but a lot of songs were written during that stay. Dear Prudence, The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, Sexy Sadie. I might be missing a few more. If I am, please bring them up.
Yeah.
But the thing is what this, and while some of that has been documented in previous interviews, what hasn't been documented is some of the stories behind these songs. And I don't want to give away too much, but you get some of the background details on events that occurred that would say inspired John Lennon to write The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill. A certain event occurred that, that influenced that. Just a tremendous amount of personal details. And, but also it discusses the impact that the Beatles being there had on the youth culture of India at the time, and how that has had repercussions even today. How Indian musicians began to adopt music, the musical styles of the British invasion, American popular music, and how it began to influence their own music and become part of it. So there's a lot of that. There's also, of course, to a certain extent, the repercussions that has had on the four Beatles moving forward. Of course, George Harrison in particular. There's a comment by one of the interviewers who says that, George Harrison, for him, the others, they were there. It had some influence on them, but for George Harrison, it never left him, and it stayed with him, what he learned and his experience.
Without this visit, and there would not be an All Things Must Pass album, or at least as we know it today. I think there's no way you could even imagine that album and those amazing songs on that album would exist for the most part without this trip, and what Indian culture and music, Indian classical music meant to George Harrison, and how it's so fascinating to see those shots. And I don't think we're giving away too much, like where he's learning sitar sitting with Ravi Shankar and what that meant to him. It was very powerful.
And there is also a great deal of exploration into John Lennon and how what happened there influenced the way he became part of the peace movement during during the 70s, during the later 60s and early 70s. His involvement with the peace movement was very, how he became involved would have influenced that. There's also a rather interesting little subplot about a potential CIA spying on this event.
Who knew?
Yeah, this is really a wild part of it. But apparently, like I said, the U.S. government, the CIA we know that the U.S. government actually kept a file on John Lennon for many years. Know that's been disclosed now because they were concerned at how the influence he was having on the culture. And it's not hard to imagine that the CIA and the U.S. government were concerned about the youth counterculture movement and that it could potentially be militarized. But there is that was a really interesting little subplot, something that's just a suspicion, can't be proven, but there is some evidence that links to it. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But
there's so many different little tentacles that kind of branch out from this, but that they bring together really well. I mean, it's a very well done documentary, kind of like what you said with what Peter Jackson did. This is much shorter, but like that, it's looking at a relatively short period of time. I mean, it does talk about before and after that trip to India, but that's kind of at the center of this film. But it's so well done.
Yeah, it is. I would recommend this film to anybody if you've seen Get Back and you felt that it gave you a deeper insight into the music, into the Beatles. If you felt it was revelatory, which most people did, this film is going to have a similar impact on you. I would tell you, it's only an hour and a half long. If you're in the US here, of course, it's not available on DVD and Blu-ray. It's only available in Europe. And so you have to have, if you're going to purchase a European copy, you have to have a region-free Blu-ray player, but you can watch it here in the US through the BritBox streaming service. It's well worth the effort to do so. but hopefully this film will get a regional US DVD Blu-ray release. Hopefully it will also be made available on a more mainstream, more well-known streaming service like maybe Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus. Hopefully it might make it there as well. In fact, I would think, given the success it's had on Disney Plus, that Disney Plus might be able to work out some kind of an arrangement, to have it shown on their service. Why not? I mean, you're already on a winning streak here with the Beatles. Why not do another one?
Yeah, and it is, and we didn't even, and we've kind of alluded to that, but it is incredible how since the release of and I believe it came out in October of 2021 when they reissued this special edition of Let It Be. Now we're seeing this as if, there's always a lot of interest in the Beatles, but now it's even this greater interest, and now this does another important part of kind of bringing together the Beatles' full story to life. Because, and especially when we're talking about George Harrison, I mean, his incredible solo career would be very different had he not, discovered Indian music, got together with Ravi Shankar, got this, not only how he brought Indian music to the Beatles, but obviously his career subsequently after the Beatles broke up in 1970. Very significant changes to kind of the history of the Beatles because of the things that you learn about in this documentary.
Yeah. So definitely worth seeking out. As if you're here in the US, it's worth the extra effort, I would tell you. Hopefully we'll get a wider release soon. And so just Robert, I want to thank you for alerting to me to this a couple, you did it last week. You told me about this and I was not aware of this film. So I really want to thank you for making me aware of this so that we could talk about this today, talk about this film. And everybody, if you've seen this film, please leave a comment. But if you haven't, please especially here in the US where it's harder to get access to, please make the extra effort. I think you're going to be very glad you saw it. As always, if you like what we do here, please do us a favor and click like. That way the YouTube algorithm recognizes us. And also, we'd love it if you hit subscribe, and we'd also love it if you hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. And if you want to give an extra level of support, please consider going to the Patreon page and making a monthly donation, whenever you can. If you can't, that's okay. Just hit help. And help, I need somebody. Sorry. But patron supporters do receive access to exclusive videos not available anywhere else, and oftentimes early access to select videos. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. Robert, thank you again for making me aware of this film. I really, really appreciated being able to see this. And, and everybody, you all take care. Hope you all stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.